The Little Rock Nine was a group of 9 African American students that integrated Central High School of Little Rock, Arkansas in 1957. This courageous group of students encountered many hardships and struggles as they explored integration, yet they still succeeded. Their ideas of integration were exchanged with others who fought the same battle. The Little Rock Nine made a huge historical impact by exploring integration, encountering and fighting racism, and exchanging ideas of desegregation. The Little Rock Nine, a successful school integration. In the 1950s in Southern America, blacks and whites continued to be segregated. In 1896, a man from Louisiana named Homer Plessy decided to fight against this. He had mixed ancestry and often passed as white. He sat in the white car of a train and was forced to move. He brought the case to court, and it eventually led him to the Supreme Court, where he argued against Judge Ferguson. Plessy argued that it was unjust that blacks had to sit in a different train car than whites. The court ruled that all facilities could be separate but equal. However, most black facilities were not equal in quality to those provided for whites. After this decision, there were many laws passed which allowed for segregation and discrimination against blacks. These were called Jim Crow laws. As a result of these laws, blacks were a minority and were treated unjustly. Some of these laws stated that blacks and whites could not sit together in the same room, or that blacks and whites had to use separate public facilities. Unfortunately, the government was not the only group that discriminated against blacks. There were also organized hate groups like the Ku Klux Klan. The KKK committed many acts of violence against blacks like beatings, lynchings, shootings, and bombings. These injustices continued for years, along with many small, unsuccessful court battles initiated by blacks to eliminate Jim Crow laws. Over time, more and more blacks began to demand justice, which led to the start of the civil rights movement. In the early 1950s, at the start of the civil rights movement, one of the first cases in the public eye for the fight for equality was Brown v. Board of Education. The Brown family was one of many families that struggled with providing their children with proper education. Linda Brown had to walk miles out of her way to go to a black school, even though there was a more accessible white school closer to her home. Another problem she faced was that most black schools had insufficient resources and were poor institutions in comparison to white schools. This caused her and other blacks to suffer from a lower quality of education, which led to unequal opportunity in life. The Brown family brought these issues to court because they believed segregated schools violated the Equal Protection Clause in the 14th Amendment. They argued that even if schools were separate but equal, they were still unconstitutional. In 1954, the Supreme Court ruled that it was unconstitutional to have segregated schools for blacks, even if they were separate but equal. Thus, the next step towards achieving equality was putting integration into action. In August of 1957, the Little Rock Nine decided to explore the Supreme Court's decision to integrate education. Daisy Bates from the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, or the NAACP, decided to recruit students to put the newly passed law to the test. The 9 black students who were chosen from Little Rock, Arkansas were Minnie Jean Brown, Elizabeth Eckford, Ernest Green, Thelma Mothershed, Melba Patillo, Gloria Ray, Terrence Roberts, Jefferson Thomas, and Carlotta Walls. The NAACP helped these students enroll into Central High School, an all-white institution, but the school refused them admission. The governor of Little Rock, Governor Orville Faubus, also vowed that they would not attend the school. Then they went to court, and on August 30th, 1957, because of the Brown case, Federal Judge Davies ruled that these students could integrate and attend Central High. The problem was that Governor Faubus, the state government, the National Guard, and the majority of the white community were still against them despite the specific ruling. On September 4th, the Little Rock Nine explored their constitutional rights given to them by Judge Davies and made their first attempt to attend Central High School. They were held back by the National Guard sent in by Governor Faubus and were confronted by an angry mob of whites who were adamant about not letting them into the school. The mob spat on the black students, yelled racial slurs at them, and held signs with slogans like "Go Back to Africa." With the forces of the National Guard and the vicious mob blocking their entry to the school, the Little Rock Nine was unable to enter the school that day. Miss Daisy Bates from the NAACP decided it would be better if the students left for safety reasons. They made their second attempt on September 23rd, this time being held back from admission to the school by a force of 1,000 local police officers. With this, U.S. Congressman Brooks Hayes and the mayor of Little Rock, Woodrow Mann, stepped in and sent a telegram to the federal government and President Eisenhower asking for help. President Eisenhower responded, stating that he would allow his Secretary of Defense to take action. The Secretary of Defense, Charles Wilson, sent over 1,000 federal troops from the 101st Airborne Division, the Screaming Eagles. He also placed 10,000 National Guardsmen on guard for the protection of the students. Although Eisenhower was not a major civil rights activist, he could not accept that Governor Faubus disobeyed the federal ruling from Judge Davies. When Eisenhower sent troops to aid the Little Rock Nine, it proved to the nation that integration was important and possible. With the help of the federal government, the Little Rock Nine successfully explored their right to integrate and attend a previously all-white school on September 25, 1957.
The crowd parted like when Moses stretched out his staff at the Red Sea. The crowd parted like the waters. We walked on dry and clean land into the school. And then we each assigned a soldier inside the building who went with us from class to class and stood outside the door.
Once these 9 students began to attend Little Rock, their battle was not over. This brave group of students now encountered discrimination and racism on a daily basis. They were bombarded with racial slurs and had objects thrown at them. The bullying continued in classrooms, hallways, and even in their personal lives. The school even received bomb threats from anonymous people.
Yes, there were white students in there who came at us with knives, acid in my eyes. My publisher stripped out 40% of the horror because he said nobody could stand to read it.
Elizabeth Eckford, a member of the Little Rock Nine, was attacked by a white mob and spat on by an older woman on her way into school. Minnie Jean Brown was suspended for defending herself against white students who were taunting her at the lunch line. It was reported that she dumped her food on the heads of 2 or 3 white students, and for this she was suspended. Later, she was expelled for once again defending herself against white students. This time she was being followed and harassed by a group of white girls. One of them threw a purse at her, and she stood up for herself by emptying the contents of the bag on the floor. On May 27th, the oldest of the Little Rock Nine members, Ernest Green, was scheduled to graduate. The principal told Ernest that if he felt uncomfortable marching with the white students, that he did not have to, but Ernest confidently replied, saying that he would graduate with the rest of his class. Despite the negative and racist community they were forced to encounter every day, the Little Rock Nine fought for what they believed in and succeeded in integrating a white school. This led them to exchange their ideas with others. The integration of Central High School inspired other schools across America to desegregate. When other people saw that it was possible for one group of students to successfully desegregate a school, it encouraged others and gave hopes that whites and blacks may one day be treated equally. Soon after the integration of Central High School, other schools across the South began to desegregate. Since the Little Rock Nine were the first to explore school integration with success, it gave others the bravery to integrate other schools. In 1960, Louisiana schools began to desegregate. The University of Georgia admitted 2 black students in 1961. In 1963, Clemson College of South Carolina allowed blacks to enroll. Although a change did not occur right away, the efforts of the Little Rock Nine and many others led to the integrated schools of today. The Little Rock Nine was a group of students that changed America forever by integrating a high school and causing this change in other schools across America. Along with other civil rights activists, they paved the road of equality for blacks and whites. Despite their encounters of racism, the Little Rock Nine fought and prevailed because they knew that someone had to stand up for their race. They explored integration, they encountered and fought racism, and they exchanged their ideas with the nation. And with that, the Little Rock Nine completed a successful school integration that changed America for the better.